Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we shall start our meeting, and I welcome all councillors and members of the public who may well be watching online to the latest meeting of the Executive here at Northamptonshire. Members and officers, if you could make sure that your devices are on silent, there will be a £10 fine which will be donated to the Chairman's charity if any noises come from your laptops or your devices. Make that clear for you now. Okay. And as some of you will notice, Councillor Helen Harrison is around the table today. I'm very pleased to welcome her with a new hat as our great member that's going to take over from Harriet Pentland's climate and green and environmental portfolio. And Helen, welcome back to the table. And I'd just like to take this moment in time just to thank Councillor Harriet Pentland for such a fantastic job that she has done over the years. She's been an absolute pleasure to work with, and both Harriet and I started our careers in local government at the same time, albeit she was a lot younger than I. But you know, it's great to have seen Harriet sort of do what she's done, and I think we can all certainly see the benefits of the work that her and the team have put in place in Northamptonshire. So on that note, Helen, get your spade ready. You're going to be digging some holes and putting a lot of trees in. Okay, I'm just going to read out a couple of other things around about filming. Anyone wishing to film any aspect of this meeting is invited to film from the table set aside. And I see we have Councillor Hakewell there at the moment with his camera and rightfully in the right place. However, can I ask anyone choosing to film the meeting that their camera covers the entire meeting rather than individual councillors? And should I be of the view that any actions relating to filming of the meeting amount to disorderly conduct, I will advise you accordingly. And if such actions continue, I will consider applying meeting procedure rule 39.3 and adjourn that meeting and ask the individual concerned to leave. I hope this will not be necessary, and I invite you to focus your camera on the entire meeting. Are there any apologies for absences?
Thank you very much, Chair. The only apology that we've received thus far is Guy Holloway, Assistant Chief Executive.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much. So, the minutes. Are there any declarations of interest, rather? No declarations of interest. So we're moving on. Notifications to. Okay, so we've noticed no declarations of interest from members. That's noted. Notifications to address the meetings. There's various people wishing to address the meeting. I will call you in at the appropriate time to address the meeting. So the first piece of substantial business on the agenda is item 4, post-financial settlement budget update. And Councillor Hakewell, would you like to come and join the meeting? And you have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning. Post-financial settlement budget update. In this report at 5.14, the consultation on the financial settlement is described as both online and non-digital means of participation. What provision has been made for portfolio holders on the executive here this morning to explain to our residents in face-to-face public meetings exactly what the impact of the financial settlement from central government will be on Northamptonshire's council tax in 25/6. At the full council meeting on the 17th of October, a motion was debated commencing The Labour government's decision to block winter fuel payments for pensioners who do not receive benefits, such as pension credit, will impact around 57,000 pensioners in North Northants. This will affect the health and well-being of our poorest older residents. Continuing, it said, pensioners will therefore need the winter fuel allowance more than ever, as without it, many vulnerable pensioners will be forced to choose between heating and eating. How do members of the executive justify raising council tax to the maximum 5% for those same 57,000 pensioners? In 5.17, we read the Scrutiny Committee has a crucial role to play, and I know, Chairman, you always think about scrutiny, a significant role to play, scrutinising and reviewing budget proposals, ensuring that they are subject to rigorous challenge. Why have in-private budget scrutiny meetings been so poorly attended by councillors and meetings postponed at short notice? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hakewell. I'd like Councillor Bunday now to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. In answer to some of Councillor Hakewell's questions, it's very difficult to, and would be virtually impossible to get around absolutely everybody to have face-to-face meetings to explain to them exactly what is going on in the budget. We do make it very, very publicly facing. All our meetings are recorded and all our reports are published. It would just be impossible and physically impossible for us to get around. As far as the increase in council tax, central government expect local government to increase the council tax by the maximum allowed, and they work all their settlements out on that. And as I will be saying within my report, there are times when sadly we have lost out on grants because of the fact that our spending power has been increased by central government, and that spending power has actually been increased by the fact that they're expecting to put council tax up. So with that, I will go into my presentation of the report. The draft general fund budget proposals were presented to the executive on December the 19th. At that time, we had just received the government finance settlement the day before, and this report outlines how those developments impact our budget and funding assumptions. The settlement, which builds on the autumn statement of October the 30th and the finance policy statement of November the 28th, provides the funding allocations for individual councils for the coming financial year. For North Northamptonshire Council, the draft budget assumed funding of just over £400.9 million. Following the provisional settlement, this figure has been adjusted to reflect a reduction of £1.2 million. However, thanks to improved projections for business rates growth, which added another £956,000, the net adverse impact on our budget has been limited to £241,000. So the key changes in funding are as follows. The New Homes Bonus, an increase of £136,000, bringing the total from £3.1 million to £3.22 million. As I've just mentioned, business rates funding baseline, a favourable movement of £956,000, rising to £115.9 million. Revenue support grant, an increase of £365,000, bringing it up to £6.6 million. We had assumed funding from the newly announced Recovery Fund of nearly £3.4 million. Unfortunately, we will not receive any funding from this grant due to a cap, whereby those authorities who have an increase greater than 3% of core spending power do not receive any funding, thus targeting councils with greater needs. Social care grant, an additional £1 million, increasing the total to £27.8 million. Children's Services Prevention Grant, a rise of £638,000, reflecting a total of just over £2 million, with potential further increases in the final settlement. The reduction in funding of £241,000, less than previously reported to the December executive, will be funded following a review of the original inflationary assumptions for the waste management contract. While these adjustments present challenges, the overall budget still remains balanced, and that's without cutting any frontline services or using our reserves. The public health grant, while the indicative allocation for 25-26 are still pending, the grant for 24-25 was £18.9 million, and the grant is ring-fenced, and any changes in funding will be reflected in how the grant is spent. The dedicated schools grant has been increased by £12.7 million from an initial indicative allocation of £414.5 million that I reported in December to £427.2 million. The table at paragraph 4.7 sets out these changes, and the table at paragraph 4.3 shows the average increase in core spending power in 25-26 across the classes of authorities. The movement in the dedicated schools grant is set out in paragraph 4.13. The consultation period on the provisional local government finance settlement commenced on the 19th of December and is open for 4 weeks, closing on the 24th of January. Prior to the publication of the final local government finance settlement, which is expected in early February 2025. And at this time, we will also receive our national insurance employer liability, and we'll know what that actually means to our council. And with that, Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. So I'd just like to put on record a very warm thanks to your team, Claire Edwards and all of the many individuals that have to come together to get this complex budget put out there. And it's always such against such tight deadlines, central government of all colours, leaving it to the very last minute to offer those settlements, which doesn't make it easier. And look, you know, it's something that we can celebrate as an authority, you know, as a council, that we have a balanced budget again by the non-use of reserves. We've maintained frontline services. You know, this is what it should be about in local government, and this is what we should be achieving at all times. So again, thank you very much to your team for doing such a fantastic job on this. I'm just looking around the table. Jill Mercer, you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Bunday said, the public health grant has not yet been notified to us, so that does leave us with still, you know, an unknown. We are hopeful that we'll get the amount that we, you know, have expected, but we don't know about it. The other thing particularly for the adults service is that although the suggestions say at 4.12 about covering of the employer's national insurance, that only covers internal, it doesn't cover external, and there is a real doubt about the effect on particularly care homes and other institutions that have a lot of part-time workers, and that could present a problem for this council ongoing. It's still an unknown, but it is something that we are watching.
You made a very good point, Councillor Mercer. Unintended consequences of a government's funding formula, I would say, and budget plans. But Councillor Brackenbury.
Well, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Yes, I completely agree with Councillor Mercer. You know, there are unintended, or perhaps they are intended, consequences of government's change in national insurance, and I know that that will have an indirect impact on the council going forward. I'd like to echo what you said, Chair, that the nimbleness of the team in reconstructing the budget after the local government settlement was announced is very much to be commended. I mean, when we're losing £3.3 million out of the recovery fund, obviously then changes have to be made, and I know it's partially offset by increased business rates, but it's good that we've managed, as you say, Chair, to get a balanced budget going forward with no use of reserves and with frontline services at the level that they are. In terms of scrutiny, I mean, of course, we do, in fact, absolutely welcome scrutiny. Colleagues around this table will all have attended budget scrutiny sessions, and I'd like to just put on record my appreciation of the scrutiny process that we went through over the previous weeks, and all the effort that's put in to present the individual directorates' budgets for analysis by the scrutiny panels. And so that's very good. And of course, we're all ward councillors. We all have a duty to our own constituents to explain why the council's budget is what it is, and of course to put it into context in considering the central government settlement as well. So communications is absolutely the key, and I think I welcome the openness and the detailed consultation of this budget, which is still live and which anybody can contribute to. So with that, I absolutely support the recommendations at Section 3.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Brackenbury pretty much stole most of what I was going to say. That's absolutely right, Key. It's good that we're all on the same page here. Yeah, town and parish council meetings, obviously we, as the elected members for North Northampton Council, we attend those meetings. We engage with the residents locally, and I think that's a key to this. Councillor Hakewell, you are one of those councillors, and I'm hoping that you are engaging with your residents as well. So you are aware of the other means to engage with the residents, so thank you for that. You mentioned about a scrutiny meeting being cancelled last minute. Our officers are not robots, and sometimes sickness occurs. These things happen, we have to make allowances for those sort of things. It's unintentional, but there was no cancellation. It's a postponement, and I think the full process has not been stifled in any way by that, because it'll be taking place very shortly. So I can assure you that full scrutiny will be carried out in accordance with all of the categories and everything that's been set out. Thank you.
Okay, just looking around the table, is there any more comments from members on this item? Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the report presenter, Councillor Bunday, just to wrap up and again recommend the recommendations, and I will then find you a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what everybody said. I think we're very, very disappointed that we didn't get any money whatsoever out of the recovery fund. That would have gone a long way to helping us. I think that we are very, very minded that we have a responsibility to our most vulnerable customers and residents. And I'm proud that we have maintained frontline services and we've kept our reserves safe at the same time, and I think that should be commended. And I thank you on behalf of my team, but the finance team, because I must admit they do a brilliant job. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as you heard, Councillor Bunday had moved that report. Can I look to someone to second that report? Councillor Brackenbury, thank you very much. So the recommendations are set out on page 7 of the agenda pack. They've now been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, David. So moving on to item 5, private sector housing assistance policy. I'd like to invite Councillor Rowley to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The report is for the private sector housing assistance policy update, and this reflects the grants available within that policy. The whole idea of these proposals is to increase the level of grants available to residents and also speed up the accessibility to those grants. It's been through an EAP and scrutiny where there was a lot of debate about this and very good input into the report in front of you. To quickly go through the proposals, Proposal 1 is to increase the discretionary funds available from £10,000 to £20,000. That means that there's £50,000 available for grants to residents instead of 40 in the current policy. Proposal 2 removes the means testing for minor capital items like stair lifts, ceiling track hoists, etc., under £10,000. So there's no longer any means testing in the report for under £10,000. Proposal 3, was means testing of children's cases for larger grants. Following consultation with the AAP and scrutiny, their recommendations to remove this have been acknowledged, and we've removed that proposal. Proposal 4 is for land charges, so we've increased the level at which land charges will start to kick in on proposals. So it's at £5,200 now instead of the £5,000 before. That alleviates a lot of the smaller overspill on the grants, needing additional work by the officers to do the land charges. 5 is for the fast-track adaptations, and it's recommended that this process is introduced outside of the OT priorities gradings. Proposal 6 is dementia grants. This is to get grants out to the residents who need it with dementia, get the grants quicker so that they can stay in their houses and live in their houses longer and better environments. Motor neuron disease grants is also the same. This is to give initial grants for minor adaptations to people who have been diagnosed with motor neuron disease so they can live their lives better in their homes whilst they get the full grants sorted out of what they need moving forward. Proposal 8 is for an independent panel. At the moment, any overage of the grants goes to the relevant director for approval and then comes to the portfolio holder for housing for approval. The recommendation is that we have a panel for those that of three people, 2 officers and the portfolio for housing. The current take on that is, I think, 3 or 4 a year of overage, but with the increases in the grants, that probably reduced, so it's not going to be used that much, but it's there to make it more transparent. And then policy 9 is for equipment maintenance. At the moment, we don't do maintenance costs on the equipment at the moment. This is to bring this in so that there's 5 years maintenance included with the equipment. And proposal 10 is for private landlords and housing associations. It's recommended that this policy allows to extradite the grants if the landlord or the association help with the grant process in some way, producing reports, etc., to speed it up. And then there's proposal 11, the final one, sorry, is for non-mandatory works, and they're highlighted in A, B and C on that report. So, oh, there's 12. Oh, small. I thought there was only 10. Home mover grants has been unchanged. Oh, that's it. And the home repair grants, it's recommended that grants are included up to a current policy named, namely the renovation grants for a maximum of 10,000. And those are the reports, Chair, fairly straightforward, but again, it's to increase the availability and speed of the grants and increase the grants to residents.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. And you say it's all very straightforward, but this is some amazing work that's gone into this, and this pretty much sums up what we want to do as a council, and that is look after our most vulnerable residents. And this sort of just fast tracks the ability for them to be able to get the stuff in place in their home, so they can live those fulfilled lives without having to be removed from home. And I absolutely welcome this report. Councillor Mercer, I see you indicating to speak.
Yes, I absolutely welcome this fantastic amount of work that's gone into this, and the detail. And the main thing is that we try to keep as much as possible people in their own home. That is their home environment. It's much better for them and for their families. And so all of these measures are helping with that, and it's absolutely marvellous that we're able to do that. And I really congratulate the team and Councillor Rowley for organising this, and look forward to the rollout of it.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. And I too welcome this report, and there is a great deal that has gone into this. I welcome anything that allows our residents that want to stay at home to be able to get grants and adaptations quicker and easier to be able to do that. I particularly welcome the removal of the adult policy for the children's. It is the child that if the child needs it, we shouldn't be looking at the adult. It's absolutely the child. And I also welcome the long-term foster placements that are mentioned in the report that will not be a land charge on it. So I do welcome this report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Binley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I too wish to thank the officers for the awful amount of hard work and effort that's gone into this. Of course, sitting and co-chairing the EAP with Councillor Rowley, I know how much time we went through this absolutely painstakingly, working both elected members and officers hand in hand, collaboratively, to get the best possible outcomes for our residents in Northamptonshire that are affected by this policy. I also know all too well the challenges that existed around this previously. Of course, having to, in a previous portfolio role, having to intervene and get involved in the process that's now been put in place to extend grants, because of course they didn't go far enough, especially with rising costs and with them not having been reviewed. So. And of course, Councillor Mercer, yeah, absolutely correct. I mean, this is quite an impact on your area, and a very positive one. So I really do welcome this, because, of course, whilst it helps expedite the situation, it also helps broaden the spectrum of the amount of people that we can help. It makes it have less red tape, but at the same time, in some instances, it just adds an extra bit of governance so that we can oversee and feel reassured that things are being done correctly as well. So I think the whole package, is absolutely spot on with this one. It's a really, really positive bit of work. I'm really pleased to have seen this come through, and the way that it's come about with that collaborative approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Councillor Brackenbury.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with all that's been said, and I absolutely welcome the report and the hard work that the team's put in to make these thoughtful changes to the policies, which I'm sure will provide a better service to some of our most vulnerable residents. I also naturally welcome the reassurance at Section 7 about the fact that the discretionary assistance we met from a capital funding allocation from central government and from the Better Care Fund, and that careful scrutiny is being maintained on the in-service budget monitoring with regard to discretionary grants. So it's all adds up, it's all sensible, and it's all very good for our residents. So congratulations to you, Councillor, and to the team.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. I think that's the list of speakers now, so I'm just going to come back to you, Councillor Rowley, just to sort of sum up, and if you so wish to do so, and I'll find you a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just quickly like to thank everyone for their comments. I'm just the one presenting it. It's the team that's brought this together. I'd also like, again, thank the EAP and scrutiny committees. It was a very animated discussion we had and very thorough. And also point out this is way above the statutory requirements we need to do for this. And we need to get out and get this grants more open to residents so they know about it. It is underfunded, underused, so we need to get out and get these funds with the additional funding and lowering the red tape. Hopefully we can get that out to residents so they've got one less worry when they have to use this service.
Thank you very much.
So I'd recommend, propose the recommendations in 3.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowley. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Mercer is seconding that report. So the recommendations are set out on page 18 to 25 of the agenda pack. They've now been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 6, Highways Asset Management Policy and Strategy. And I would like to invite Councillor Hakewell to address the meeting.
Thank you. Excuse me. Oh dear. Our residents are driving on roads that are in the worst condition in living memory. They're bearing the financial cost of years of poor maintenance and renewal, having to replace tyres and fix their broken cars. This is a stealth tax on our road users. Many residents feel that the executive is in denial about just how bad our roads are, and let alone having a solution for improving them. Why should anyone believe that yet another strategy will do anything to improve residents' driving experience?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hakewell. Councillor Bidney, would you like to introduce your report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't think I can really answer those points because it's quite expansive and not about the strategy or the policy that we're here to talk about today, which of course will become apparent when I talk about it later. And I think the questions asked, I think, or comments made, I think are things that we've probably been over a number of times in this executive committee, and I think we all know all too well where the changes need to come from. So on that, Chair, I will introduce the report which outlines and presents the Council's new Highways Asset Management Policy and the Strategy. So Appendix A is the Highways Asset Management Policy and the Appendix is the Strategy. Appendix B is the Strategy. The Highways Asset Management Policy sets out our commitment to adopt and maintain an asset management approach to the delivery of highways maintenance. The Highways Asset Management Strategy explains how the policy will be achieved within the available funding. As detailed within the strategy, the Highways Asset Management plans will be reviewed and developed for each highways asset, which will detail service levels, performance targets and other aspects as detailed in the report. It's also important to adopt these documents to replace the previous ones Northamptonshire County Council had from 2019. These documents form only a very small part of a suite of documents, such as, again, this is one that we've previously talked about, the Holistic Evaluation Assessment Tool, which is HEAT, which I always forget what it stands for, which explains how North Northamptonshire's highways network is maintained, and more information is contained about these various plans, policies and strategy and how they all link together, which is contained within the strategy at 2.3. Because as I said at the beginning, this is just a small part of how all of these things come together. These two documents are more focused strategic documents, and also link in with the corporate commitments. They follow the national best practice currently provided. A presentation was made to the prosperous communities at EAP outlining the policy and the strategy, and also both documents have been considered by the Place and Environment Scrutiny Committee as is laid out in the report. Therefore, Chair, on that basis, I move the recommendation set out at 3.1 for the reasons in 3.2 of the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Just looking around the room for any comments from members on this item. Okay, we move on. Councillor Binley has moved that report. Could someone second the report for us, please? Councillor Rowley, thank you very much. And the recommendations are set out on page 156 of your agenda packs. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we now move on to item 7, Active Community Strategic Framework. I'd like to invite Councillor Maxwell to come and join the meeting. Councillor Maxwell, you know you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Active Community Strategy Framework. This report clearly shows how people need to be active, because if we're not active, we could face problems in the future. No age is left out. Of course, people from lower income households are less likely to be able to afford certain activities which affect their health. In 5.4, the analysis is that Kettering and Corby and Wellingborough are only the areas of the community with greatest needs. However, this is not the case, and I would like to say parts of Rushden and Earthlingborough also fall into these categories. In 5.7, whilst Rushden has a swimming pool, it's outlived itself. It's not open to the public between 3 p.m. and 7:30, and the changing rooms need an update. The car park has lights missing and it needs updating. It is 45 years since anything has been done. While schools have 3G pitches, there is no independent pitch in East Northants area. Earthlingborough can be accessed by the villagers. In 5.6, it mentions the council leisure areas as nearing the end of their expected lifespan and continue investment in replacement. We need to see this happen and not all the funds going to Kettering and Corby. Lastly, I see that sailing, volleyball and urban sports should be promoted, but also outside table tennis tables. All ages should be accommodated, no costs to the public. If we're to see, lastly, if we can see access to clean toilets being available would be great to young children who need to go in parks. But they've been locked up for the past 20 years. Why? Rushden, Earthlingborough and Thrapston, I hope you're listening. This is a great report. It's active for people of all ages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Howe, I'd like you to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. And thank you, Councillor Maxwell, for your comments. I think when I give my report, you'll see that this report, this strategy highlights numerous areas that need investment. And I note that you mentioned table tennis. You've been an advocate of providing table tennis tables in Rushden in the park. So congratulations to you on that. But I think the report speaks for itself, and I'll go into the report now if you'll allow that to happen. So this report introduces the North Northamptonshire Active Community Strategic Framework. The Active Community Strategy is the overarching document within the Active Communities Framework for North Northamptonshire. It sets out the active community's strategic outcomes and priorities for the next 5 years, which will feed into and influence a number of other strategic plans set out by North Northamptonshire Council. Active Communities Strategic Framework has been under development for the last year or so, working with consultants Max Associates, and it's been a detailed and comprehensive programme of work. It comprises the Active Communities Strategy, which is the overarching strategy aimed at getting people more active, and 2 national planning policy documents, and they are the Leisure Facilities Strategy and the Playing Pitch Strategy. The Leisure Facilities Strategy and Playing Pitch Strategy have taken a year to produce, as they need to follow nationally defined technical methodology, which includes, for example, assessing pitches across the seasons. An Active Communities Strategic Partnership has been established, and that's chaired by the Chief Executive of Northamptonshire Sport, and it includes representatives from across the council, our leisure providers, sporting national governing bodies, primary care, the ICB and the voluntary sector, education and businesses. And the partnership will oversee the delivery of the Active Community Strategy and also the work to deliver and keep the keeping active priority of the new North Northamptonshire Health and Wellbeing Strategy. For the Active Community Strategy, wide stakeholder and public engagement was also undertaken, including with elected members, sports clubs, schools, town and parish councils, national governing bodies, the voluntary sector, as well as a public survey. The focus was on the shift from a traditional leisure strategy to one all about active well-being and how we enable our residents to make being active an easy feature of their everyday lives. The survey is also focused on the usage of the current leisure offer and barriers to participation. The outcomes identified within the Active Community Strategy are set out in paragraph 5.7 and relate to healthy communities, connected communities, thriving communities and green communities. Detailed action plans are currently being co-produced with the Active Community Strategic Partnership. The second strategy in the framework is the Leisure Facilities Strategy, and the aim is to improve the health and well-being of residents by planning for the appropriate facilities to meet the needs of increasing population. The strategy informs the Council on where and when to maximise investment opportunity to improve its leisure facilities. It provides the Council with a documented evidence of current use and future needs for sports and leisure facilities within the authority, focusing on the quality and quantity issues in relation to supply and demand up until 2041. This has involved a detailed assessment of the North Northampton Leisure Estate, which includes sort of stock condition surveys, quality audits, usage and assessment of all the indoor and outdoor non-pitch facilities within North Northamptonshire, per sporting category, from pools to gyms to sports halls to athletics tracks, equestrian facilities, golf facilities, water sports to urban sports. The findings, not surprisingly, indicated that some of the Council's leisure assets are ageing and require investment. The action plan is summarised in paragraph 5.28. The strategy and action plan are largely what we already knew. However, they now provide the Council with the detailed evidence base required for the Council to continue to engage with potential funders such as the national governing bodies like the Football Foundation, Sport England and developers for Section 106 contributions to protect and enhance the leisure offer in North Northants. It is the start of the process and will help our officers in negotiations with developers and other funding bodies. Paragraph 5.28 also indicates where some of these actions are already in progress. For example, the Football Foundation awarded an award of $810,000 for the Kettering pitch and track refurbishment, which went to the executive in December last year. Desborough Leisure Centre floor replacements currently being procured. External funding already secured for Northampton Road tennis courts in Kettering and for Swanspool tennis courts in Wellingborough. On the back of this strategy, the action plan and investment plan for our leisure estate will be developed. However, it should be noted that this plan needs to take a number of things into consideration alongside the recommendations in the strategy. And they are the urgent investment required for health and safety reasons. How does any investment contribute to the outcome within the active community strategy? How will any investment affect income opportunities? Has any feasibility or options appraisal work already been undertaken? Has external funding already been secured, e.g. decarbonisation funding? Or are external funding opportunities already being pursued and are likely to be supported as they meet the funders' strategic objectives, e.g. Sport England, Place Expansion Programme and the Lawn Tennis Association. The availability of external funding, e.g. developer contributions, have to be linked to the proximate development and be viable in planning terms. The revenue costs associated with any new borrowing the Council seeks to undertake and officer capacity to deliver large-scale projects simultaneously. The final strategy is the framework is the playing pitch strategy. NNC did not have a playing pitch strategy previously, and planners were reliant on outdated strategies from the former sovereign councils. The new Northamptonshire playing pitch strategy has assessed the supply and demand of pitches across the local authority area, so we can identify ways that any shortfall can be addressed to meet current and future demand. The playing pitch strategy has been developed in line with Sport England's playing pitch strategy guidance. The data collection process included a full audit of pitches across Northamptonshire, including the site name, location, ownership and management type, number and type of pitches and outdoor sports facilities, accessibility of the pitches to the community also. Overall, quality of pitches and ancillary facilities as well, and the level of protection, yeah, I got confused there, didn't I? The level of protection and security of tenure, views of users and providers as well. To elevate demand for pitches within Northamptonshire, information used was regarding the number of sports clubs and teams, including their match and training requirements, casual demand, educational demand, displaced demand, which is teams wishing to play within the district but not able to, latent demand, i.e. demand that exists but can't be catered for due to lack of provision, and future demand, which is including clubs and teams' aspirations for development as well as national governing body priorities and targets. The action plan provides a clear set of recommendations that are prioritised for each sport and site. This action plan will be used by all stakeholders involved in its development. When looking at the future provision of outdoor sports facilities, it will be used to identify where investment needs to be prioritised for each sport in order to meet any of the shortfalls that have been identified. This will also be the case when new provision is being proposed, linked to any housing growth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank everyone involved, especially Kerry Pennell, AD for Communities and Leisure, and Julie Cardwell, who is our leisure lead. They've been absolutely instrumental in taking this forward. It's been a mammoth task over a year, and the hours invested in this, and this strategy contains a lot of valuable information that will give us the evidence base to be able to go out for the funding that we desperately need. So therefore, Chair, I propose we approve the recommendations in 3.1, that's A to D, for the reasons set out in 3.2. That was a bit of a long one, wasn't it? Sorry about
Well,
that.
that's very good. I wasn't aware you were going to read the whole strategy out, but nevertheless, that's some fantastic work, and well done to you and your team on that. I mean, it really sets the agenda for years to come, and the investment in that area is going to obviously be picked up. So Councillor Brackenbury has indicated that he wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. He has indeed. Well, first thing to say is thank you. It is an extremely comprehensive suite of documents, and I cannot imagine how much hard work's gone into providing what is essentially a complete master plan for active communities throughout our area. And there is no directorate that is unaffected by this. Healthier outcomes is good for everything we do. It's good for the economy, it's good obviously for the services that we provide, and it's good for the individual residents, of whom 350-odd thousand live in North Northamptonshire. I actually welcome a remark Councillor Maxwell made in her contribution earlier on, and she's right. We need to target areas of inactivity, and I freely admit that there are substantial pockets in Kettering, in Corby, in Wellingborough that need to be targeted. Absolutely, in this initiative, but in wider initiatives as well. But we shouldn't forget that there is substantial deprivation in other communities in North Northamptonshire, some of them surprisingly rural as well. So we just need to keep that ever in mind. I absolutely welcome the juxtaposition, Chair, of the active communities strategy itself, the playing pitch strategy, and how welcome it is to see that up-to-date evidence base feeding in, and of course the strategy on the actual leisure facilities. And I know it's not without its problems, and I know that some of our leisure facilities are creaking a little or more, and absolutely. But at least let's note the problem, acknowledge the problem, and then we can see what can be done about it. So last comment really is just to thank everybody who's been involved in this enormous piece of work, and absolutely support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I mean, the amount of work that's gone into this is incredible. I'm really applaud the whole team for it. I think anyone, sort of member of the public, wanting to know what facilities there are for just about every sport there is, could look at this and find it. And it doesn't just cover our facilities, it covers all the facilities in schools and private hands as well. So it's a real reference book. And from my area, obviously, I really welcome it because not only is keeping active one of the strands of the priorities of the health and wellbeing strategy, but also children and young people. And one of our other strands, we know that there is a problem with childhood obesity, and that needs addressing, and obviously keeping active very much helps with that. It's all about healthy outcomes, keeping healthy, keeping active, and as has been said in the report, there are far too many of our residents are not active enough. And the benefits, if you look at 4.2 of the different diseases and illnesses that keeping active can help, it should give everyone a little bit of a push to get active. But you know, it's really really helpful to have this and to see what facilities we have, and see we do need to do some work, do need to have some investment, but having that evidence base, as Councillor Brackenbury said, will help us try to get the funds to put in. But Councillor Maxwell said you have to be, have money to do it. Our parks are free. you know, anyone can go in the parks and use them. So you don't actually have to pay out for every single thing. But we need to encourage people to use what we've got as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. Councillor Howes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just to echo a few comments that have already been made in regards to the hard work that's gone into this, it's really good because I know this has been coming for quite some time. This now really unlocks a lot of opportunities for residents. I notice all the provisions have virtually been covered. I can't find skiing. And I'm disappointed that lacrosse has no demand. So I shall find people that want to play lacrosse in North Northamptonshire. On a more serious note, the Desborough Leisure Centre, I know you've previously mentioned it, the floor, I just wanted to pick up on 5.22, just to give people some reassurance in my ward that obviously the floor is being procured, as you say, but also meetings have been happening, and I appreciate the hard work of the portfolio holder in regards to the phase 2 that's coming with the Section 106 agreement in terms of re-looking at what is required, because some time has now passed, and I think it's a good idea that we actually reassess what the needs are for phase 2 and see if we can make sure that we are delivering in phase 2 those facilities that people now want, and not what was previously committed to many moons ago. So so to repeat, this is a really, really good piece of work, and it means that we're now going to be able to unlock so much further leisure provision. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howes. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Leader, and I too welcome this report, and I know, again, the hard work and dedication that has gone into this report, not only from officers and members, but from members of the public as well, who have contributed to this and given their words of wisdom towards it, which is fantastic, because then that's exactly what it should be about. I think, like you say, Councillor Howe, it's the evidence, and we now have the evidence here to be able to go out to more outside organisations, to apply for more grants to get that funding in. As a council, we simply cannot afford to do everything that is on here. We know that we need to do it, or we'd like to do it, because actually some of the statistics that are in there are quite stark. The 85-year-olds and over who have no physical activity. We know that physical activity has a positive impact on mental health, which is currently, across the UK is a huge issue and should absolutely be looked at. And so throughout this report, we talk about it, we look at it, we have the evidence. I know we've done some great work with the FA. You brought a brilliant report back just before Christmas, I think it was, in working with the FA around football. So I know that we will be able to go out there and work with other organisations, other builders, and with the Section 106 to get more money in to absolutely change these priorities that we have. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edwards. I think that's all the councillors that wishes to speak. So, Councillor Howe, I'm going to come back to you just to sum up and find you a seconder to your recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and thank you, members, for indulging me. This is such a substantial piece of work. I really felt that it needed a proper presentation and to pick up on some of the key points within the strategies so that we could understand the complexities of them, but also how much engagement has gone on with everybody and what this actually means. You're right, Councillor Edwards, this is our evidence base now, and it gives us the opportunity to work with external bodies and things to try and gain some funding for the much needed facilities that that we'd have here in North Northamptonshire. So I really thank you for your comments, and I know the team will be really delighted to have received the praise that they absolutely deserve, because they have done an amazing job. As I say, it's been over a year in the making, this so I'm absolutely delighted with it. So thank you very much, and I'm more than happy to, as I said, propose the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Yes, Councillor Edwards, I'm taking you putting your hand up to second the report. Okay. Councillor Edwards has now seconded that report. The recommendations are on page 187 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands in favour, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Very good, thank you, David. So moving on to item 8, Knights Farm Rushton Overage Agreement. I'd like to invite Councillor Maxwell back to the floor to address the meeting. Councillor Maxwell, you have 3 minutes.
Hello. Whilst this is a planning agreement dating back to 1998, since then the A6 bypass has been built, and the former county council never took into account the road system, and the roundabout from 500 houses is still going to be built here. Can we look at this as a single road coming into the A6, or are we too late? The County Council never consulted us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Binley would like to introduce the report, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to, first of all, cover off those comments very simply, this is not a planning determination paper. Of course, their planning is mentioned in the paper, but this is specifically to talk about the overage agreement. So, Chair, this report seeks authorisation for the variation of the long stop date on the deed of variation, which was originally approved by Executive back on the 20th of April 2023, and subsequently extended at Executive on the 18th of April 2024. Under that deed variation, it's due to expire at the end of April this year. It is requested that the long stop date be amended to the 30th of April 2026. The landowners have requested that this be extended to April 2027. However, I was clear that I would give very serious consideration to extend the agreement again at the previous executive meeting, and therefore to keep momentum with resolving this matter, the report proposes the extension to April 2026. However, it is also part of the recommendations to delegate authority to further extend the date should it be required without it needing to come back to executive again. Just to briefly recap on the history of this overage agreement. So Knights Farm was originally sold by Northamptonshire County Council in 1998. At that time, as part of the sale, an overage provision was placed upon the sale for a period of 40 years to benefit from any future development. In April 2018, NCC entered into a deed of variation with the landowner. NNC are the beneficiary in the overage, as this was passed on from NCC. The overage is due to the site changing to a more valuable use, i.e. residential, for up to 500 units. The site is part of the Rushden East Sustainable Urban Extension, which includes houses, a percentage of which are affordable homes, offices, schools, a park, community facilities and cemetery land. The request for the extension has come about due to planning matters as per 4.11 to 4.13 contained in your reports. This delay is not due to the landowner, developer or council. In short, one of the statutory consultees had previously agreed in principle to enable the planning application to be submitted, but since that time have raised new concerns and further negotiations are required. This deed of variation for the overage provision should result in a significant capital receipt to the council. If we were to choose not to extend the overage agreement, then this would revert to the original agreement made back in 1998. And the owners have indicated they will not proceed with the disposal of the land, and the original agreement will expire in 2038, at which time the owners would be free to dispose of the land without having to pay any capital receipt to the council. Therefore, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendations made out in sections 3.1, subsection I to II, for the reasons set out at 3.2.
Thank you very much, Councillor Binley. Councillor Brackenbury, you indicated to speak.
Thank you indeed, Chair. Yes, I very much support this. I know, and it is right, that we were looking very carefully at the extensions of the long stop on this on this parcel of land, and we were wondering whether the developer was in fact bringing the land forward. Clearly, that is not the issue. The issue is, as Councillor Binley points out, one of the statutory consultees, National Highways, that is delaying the process, and so it would be foolish for us not to extend the long stop for the reasons, but partly of site delivery, which we are confident is coming forward, and of course the fact that exercising the overage agreement will, as Councillor Binley quite rightly points out, result in a substantial capital gain to the council, which I think we could find useful elsewhere. So, for that reason, I absolutely support the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackery. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much welcome this because on the previous occasion, I think Councillor Binley said that we would be not happy about extending this, but for no fault of their own, that the developers have not been able to proceed. So it's quite reasonable, but it's also quite reasonable to extend it only to 2026 and then look at it in the future if it should need extending again. So for the other reasons that the other members have stated, I think this needs our support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mercer. So I think the report makes it quite clear that obviously we need to extend it for the reasons articulated by Councillor Binley. Also, one of the recommendations is that ability to re-extend that overage is set aside with the Director of Jonathan Waterworth, the AD, I can't remember what his title is. No, it's not. And the member as well, so it won't have to come back to the executive, which I just think will make it a far more efficient process moving forward. Councillor Binley, I don't know if you just wanted to wrap up on some of those points that have been raised, and I'll find you a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. No, I agree with absolutely everything that's been said. Totally agree with you. So thank you very much for your supportive comments.
Thank you. So would someone like to second that proposal? Councillor Mercer, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 754 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we move on to item 9, Elsbarton Primary School expansion, additional funding. And I'd like to invite Councillor Edwards to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Leader. This is me asking you for some more money for Elsbarton Primary School. So Elsbarton Primary School is increasing from 525 pupils to 630. Work has commenced and mobile classrooms have been removed and changed, and work has started on the car park. Unfortunately, this has hit the top line of the budget and is now creating an overspend of £761.3 thousand. So I'm asking you today if you could take it from, approve it from the DfE Basic Needs Fund of that money. The overspend really has come about because there was some contaminated soil that needed removing, and also the flooding that happened before Christmas had an adverse effect on the building works. None of these could have been predicted within the original plan, and so this is why we are currently overspending. The plan is to finish it by the September intake of this year, and I look forward to a finalisation of this project.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edwards, members, do we have anything to say in relation to this? No. Okay. So Councillor Edwards has moved the proposal. Would someone like to second it, please? Councillor Binley, thank you very much. The recommendations are set out on page 787 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Have a show of hands in favour, please.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we now move on to item 10, Green Hills Solar Farm. Councillor Hakewell, you've suggested you want to talk on this matter. You have 3 minutes.
Most people are opposed to covering farmland with solar panels when warehouses and other buildings would be much less damaging to our environment and would leave our farmland for food production. What is the Council's policy on installing solar panels on roofs rather than on productive farmland? In your report in 810.1, Community Impact, it states, at this stage, the following wards have been identified as being most affected by the DCO proposals, which include, amongst others, Rothwell and Maudsley and Burton and Broughton. Reports are only being presented to the South Planning Committee. It's not acceptable to exclude Rothwell, Maudsley and Burton Broughton Committee and ward members from the formal decision-making process, as these wards fall under North Planning Committee. What plans have the Executive Committee got in place to form a joint planning committee, North and South, to consider this massive solar farm application? In 8.1.1, we learn that there is a cost implication of resourcing North Northamptonshire's involvement in the DCO. The Growth and Regeneration Service is not structured to manage the pressures of a major DCO within its existing resources or budget. How can residents be assured that they will have a say in how their places are developed if the Council doesn't have the resources to carry out relevant consultation and scrutiny? In 8.6.1, the report states, this report has not been considered by an executive advisory panel. In 8.7.1, we read, this report has not been considered by the Scrutiny Committee. We keep talking about scrutiny, but our reports in front of us keep saying no scrutiny. Why is scrutiny not involved in these momentous decisions in relation to this massive solar farm?
Thank you very much, Councillor Hakewell. Councillor Maxwell, you've got 3 minutes to give your speech.
Green Hill Solar Farm development. It has been decided that NNC would be the host authority for this proposed development. I'm sure most of you would have no idea how many acres of farmland we would lose and what impact this would have from Wellingborough to Buckinghamshire. Grendon would be the storage area for all this electric power, but at what cost to this area of flooding? We are not talking about a few fields, we're talking about miles of solar panels seen on the map. Whilst this is in a pre-application stage, we would have to say, as a council, the planning inspector, highways, landscape, environmental protection would be involved. In 6.2, air quality, noise, vibration, water would be taken into account. But would Grendon, Beaujet, Titchmarsh, Old, Walgrave, Mears Ashby, Wellingborough be taken into account? I think not. Whilst I'm not against solar panels, I think we have a flooding causing issues which should be considered in this very large development, which would have an impact to Buckinghamshire. Of course, we could be overruled by the government. Who knows? I hope we seriously look at this pre-application and realise we must protect villages and towns from this massive development in our area of solar panels. This would be a blot on the landscape of simmering solar panels. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maxwell. And I'd now like to invite Councillor Brackenbury to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm grateful to Councillors Hakewell and Maxwell for their concern on this scheme. To put it in context, This scheme is projected to generate up to 500 megawatts of electricity. Any scheme that is generating over 50 megawatts of electricity is considered to be a project of national significant infrastructure. And therefore, as has been alluded to by both the speakers, the decision-making is reserved to the Secretary of State. So basically a decision would be made by the planning inspector acting on her behalf. I think it's probably worth pointing out at this stage, Chair, that the current government is specifically minded to promote renewables as part of the revisions to the National Planning Policy Framework. The scheme as proposed and as indicated in the chart in the report comes from Lavenden, or just north of Lavenden in Buckinghamshire, and runs on a northwesterly trajectory and has considerable areas of potential solar development in the Beaujert area, in Mears Ashby area, and various other areas up to just near the village of Old, which is actually in West Northamptonshire, and Lavenden is, as you know, in Buckinghamshire. Nevertheless, the vast majority of the 1,200 hectares of proposed development will be in Northamptonshire. As Councillor Hakewell rightly points out, we, as an authority, we are the hosting authority, and so we would have to work with the developers as in all aspects of pre-application discussions and determinations. And of course, as a consultee, we will be making representations to the lengthy inquiry which will take place when this proposal actually is considered by the Planning Inspectorate. In terms of accountability, it will certainly go to the Planning Committee South, which covers the vast majority of sites within Northamptonshire that are concerned in this. But of course, representations from any affected councillor, ward member, member of the public or stakeholder are absolutely welcomed. This is at the moment, of course, in pre-application stage, and the purpose of the paper is to enable the Executive Director of Place and Economy, Mr. Candler, in consultation with myself, to respond to the numerous consultations and engagement from both the developer and the Planning Inspectorate and Examination Authority during the formulation of the proposed development consent order stages. So that's basically pre-application, acceptance, pre-examination, the examination itself, and post-examination inquiries which also can come forward. It's also requested that authority be delegated to the Executive Director of Place and Economy to deal with any post-decision matters that may arise if a development consent is granted. I think, Chair, it's also important to point out that this is a proposal brought forward as a development consent order by the Secretary of State. We, as Northamptonshire Council, have to engage in this and have to engage in all the pre-application discussions so that we can set the opinions of the residents of Northamptonshire that are affected by this proposal, so that these concerns can be articulated to the planning inspector when the proposal is examined. It's absolutely important that we represent the views of this council and the views of residents that are affected. So it's important that we move to a measured consideration of the site. The planning inspectorate will actually look at the pros and cons. Basically, it's the usual thing in all forms of planning. Is the benefit of a particular scheme, does it outweigh the harms that that scheme may cause to the environment and to local residents? And that is the question that the planning inspector will be grappling with. It's not a slam dunk. While it is true that central government have reserved this as a project of national infrastructure, it does not necessarily follow that they will automatically give planning permission. And so it's extremely important that Northamptonshire is, and the other authorities involved are fully represented at all stages of the inquiry and all stages of this lengthy planning process. So with that, Chair, the recommendations are at 3.1 to endorse the Regulation 11 notice to submit a draft statutory consultation response to the preliminary environmental impact report in regard to the scheme, and to delegate authority as I've already articulated. So I propose the recommendations at 3.1A to C for the reasons set out at 3.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brackenbury. Is there any comments in relation to this paper from members? Okay. So the recommendations are set out on your agenda packs. They're at page 795. Could someone look to second those recommendations? Councillor Howell, thank you very much. And as I say, they are at 795 on the agenda pack. Can I have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to capital programme update for 24-25. Councillor Hakewell, you wish to speak on this item.
In 3.1, we read Earls Barton School expansion, additional budget approval of 762k, already mentioned, 25.6, to be funded from Basic Needs Capital Grant. How can the community feel confident that the executive has control over capital expenditure when such significant overspends are identified during construction projects? What contingency is being built in, especially as we're in a period of consultation for capital projects for 25-26? Doesn't give confidence. A capital budget of 1.3 million was allocated in this year's budget for a very unpopular proposal to build on Rothwell Green Space. Whilst I was not personally advised of it, it came into the public domain that a report would be published on the 8th of January for inclusion in today's executive meeting. The report was to indicate that an alternative site for a temporary travellers stopping site had been identified and would be considered as an alternative to Rothwell Green Space.
Councillor Hakewell, can I just stop you there?
The community took...
Councillor Hakewell, can I just stop you there, please? The
capital programme.
The item you're talking about is not relevant to this meeting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's all about the capital programme, and this is an update.
I would just like to defer to the monitoring officer, if you wouldn't mind.
I'm sure I'll be ruled out of order.
Thank you, Chair. The report is in relation to the capital programme generally, and we're not talking to specific items. Councillor Hakewell, so if you could address the content of the report, please.
I think you had a clear...
I think I've probably made enough for the community to understand that this is in chaos and I'm being closed down. Thank you.
Councillor Hakewell, nothing's in chaos and we haven't closed you down. You still had time to talk. Okay, I'd like to invite Councillor Bunday to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The one relevant item that Councillor Hakewell did bring up, the Earls Barton School expansion. I think Councillor Edwards was very, very explanatory earlier on explaining exactly why there was an overspend, and it's because of situations way beyond our control. Going on from that, Chair, there are 3 items actually on this capital programme update. The first one is, as we've explained and discussed earlier, the Earls Barton School expansion, additional budget approval for £762,000, and this is going to be funded from Basic Needs Capital Grant. The other 2 items, Swanspool Tennis Courts refurbishment, budget approval of £70,000, and that will be funded £50,000 from external grants and £20,000 from capital receipts. And Westglebe Park AstroTurf resurfacing, which is a budget approval of £55,000, and that will be funded through £25,000 from external grant and £30,000 Environment from the Leisure Minor Works budget. And with that, I'm happy to propose the recommendations of paragraph 3.1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bunday. And we continue to invest in our sport and leisure, which is very good to hear, and our schools, which is obviously something that's very important. Councillor Howe, you've said you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's really good news. Obviously, the Swanspool Tennis Court refurbishment and the Westglebe Park AstroTurf resurfacing. This goes to show that we're constantly looking for those funding pots out there to be able to invest in our leisure facilities, and these are just 2 of the ones that have been brought forward in recent months. So I'm delighted that these have come forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. So I did explain earlier on about the Earls Barton Primary School, and so I will reiterate that it's down to flooding and contaminated soil. None of those could have been predicted beforehand. But what I would like to say is that, and I know Councillor Hakewell said, what faith does the community have in these budgets? The past 4 years, as I've been portfolio holder, I've brought at least 30 different projects to the executive asking for various sums of money, capital money, to build extensions to schools, and things like that. And this is the first time that a project has gone overspent through things that are above and beyond our control. So absolutely faith in our team that we have the right people in place putting these projects forward within the budgets that are allocated.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I'd just like to add to that we have very competent and professional officers who guide us, who are, certainly able to move us in the direction if something is going wrong. You've already said that about the land contamination and the flooding could never have been mitigated, no matter how good your plans are. But on the positive side, this is more capacity in that school for the local children to go to that school, and we need to celebrate in that, I would suggest, rather than sort of mull upon the fact that it's overspent slightly. But as you're right, you've brought various projects to this executive, and commend you and your team for the continued investment in our children in North Northamptonshire. Thank you. I'm just looking around the table. There's no further comments. So the recommendations are on page 886. The paper has been moved, and if I could ask for a seconder, please. Councillor Edwards, thank you very much. Can we have a show of hands, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I confirm that I've not received any items of urgent business to be considered at this meeting. So that does conclude the business on the agenda, and I thank all the officers, members of public who are watching online, and the councillors that have been involved as well. So I now declare this meeting closed.